Hello, my name is Austin Hughes, and I am a student at Lone Star College to Professor Fay Lee. I am taking Education 2301, and this is my weekly assignment. This assignment is to go over the lesson plan and discuss how it could be made more culturally inclusive and more inclusive in general for students in general. Whether they be disabled or special needs or um, from different culture entirely. First off, I would like to go over the length of time it takes for this whole assessment, this whole assignment to happen, the 30 minutes. That in itself is not a bad time. I can see everything in this happening in that 30 minutes. However, I can also see issues and that time limit will be a little too, they'll get a little close to that time limit. Also, I'd like to apologize before I go any farther for the lighting in my room. The way I have all this set up is not the best. Anyway, so first and foremost, time. The assignment itself is to identify various animals that use camouflage as a defense mechanism. They do this by creating paper butterflies using red, orange, and blue, or various other combination of colors to create paper butterflies. They then put these paper butterflies on a colored piece of construction paper. For example, if you use the colors red, orange, and blue for the butterflies, you can use a red, orange, or blue construction paper to put on the desk for those butterflies to camouflage or stand out on. So for example, you use red paper, the red butterflies would be camouflaged, the blue and the orange would stand out, the blue ones would stand out the most. The teacher would then, after the whole assignment is done, discuss why the different colored butterflies were better suited for camouflage and why the other ones weren't. So in order to do this all, after all that, they then have to draw certain animals that have certain um, camouflage traits, i.e., polar bear in the North Pole or a frog in a tree, etc. Now, the issue is they got to do this all in 30 minutes, which I can see can be possible with the right teacher and with the right students. However, to make this culturally inclusive, you would have to, for example, let's just say some of your students were Spanish and English was not their first language. Let's just say their first language was Spanish. You would have to repeat your instructions, which you've already said once and would take about, let's just say, a couple minutes to go over. You'd have to either repeat them in Spanish or you'd have to have an interpreter to repeat them in Spanish as you speak. This could either cause one of two things happening. Three things, actually. First thing, everything goes off without a hitch, and you'll keep moving, which is ideal. Second thing is that if the interpreter is speaking at the same time as you are, for example, you know how sign language interpreters are signing at the same time as actual people? That came out very wrong, and I apologize. But you know how the sign language interpreters are interpreting as the speaker is speaking? Then what if the Spanish interpreter, interprets at the same time you're speaking? This could cause confusion and cause people to not hear everything and therefore not fully understand the instructions. Third thing that could happen is the interpreter could be speaking after you are. For example, hello, how are you doing? Hola, ¿cómo está? And they go on like that. That could take up a couple minutes, therefore pushing you back time-wise, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But you also have to understand that time-wise, you only have 30 minutes. And this is grade level 3 through 6. It's a bunch of 7 to about 12-year-olds-ish. So, A, they're hyperactive. B, they're kids. And C, how well are they going to pay attention? Which actually goes a part of A and B. But the point is, will they understand the instructions? You only have 30 minutes. Second thing, a way to cut back on the time is possibly making the butterflies beforehand. This has its own ups and downs. Ups being cut back on time. Therefore, you have more time to actually complete the lesson and possibly do a game afterwards, which I'm sure all the kids would love. Or, downside means they'll be less engaged as they themselves did not make the butterflies. Because I know several kids who they didn't do anything to help. They're not invested. What's the point? So, good and bad there. If you do choose to build them beforehand, then that means the students will be able to just keep on going, and you can discuss why you're using these colors and do it in a relatively quickly manner. By the time all that is done, by the time you've discussed the project, you have translated the project, translated the instructions to the project, and given everything out. I would put 5 to 10 minutes have already gone by. You have 20 minutes left to finish the assignment. You put all the butterflies out, you tell them to look, they come up, they do their project, which is to walk up, they're predators, they walk up, they go, they grab a butterfly that they can see easily without actually searching for a butterfly. They grab it, they go back to the seat, put it back. And they repeat this several times until everyone has a certain amount. Until all that's left, until all that's left are the butterflies that are camouflaged, or until all of one type of butterfly is missing, i.e. the blue butterflies, because they're the most obvious on the red paper. So all the blue ones are gone. Let's say that takes another 5 minutes, 15 minutes gone. You have 15 minutes left. You then have to discuss why. Why did the students specifically choose the blue butterflies? Then you have to translate it. Because all this you're translating, you have to translate all of this for the students who are not who do not have English as their first language and therefore get confused easily, or they do not understand it completely. Therefore, it's going to take a little bit of time off. It's not bad. It's inevitable. You then have to go, and once that's done, the students get to watch a video or read a book about animals that can camouflage. For example, the one shown right here. Show a video or read a book about animals that can camouflage, and the video shown is BBC Earth Unplugged Top 10 Animal Camouflage. And then in independent, I haven't actually looked at that video yet, but and it also shows the little PowerPoint animals can camouflage pictures and information. I don't know how long that video is, but I'm assuming it's probably 3 to top 10. Normally the top 10 videos I've seen have been anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how long the speaker actually takes discussing the thing. So the book would be quicker because you can simply roll right through it, but I think that the video would be more in depth. So that leaves you 5 minutes to do independent practice. If materials are available, allow students to research the animal that uses camouflage as a defense. This could be a great activity during computer lab if available. Tell students to draw a picture of an animal hiding in the environment. For example, they can draw a green frog in a tree, or a snowy owl, or a polar bear in the Arctic. Have students write a summary of the animal that they drew. For example, the snowy owl is cool for many reasons. It lives in the snow and is white. Its white color helps the snowy owl hide from its predators and stay camouflaged. As you can see, the snow owl is a master of disguise. That in itself, for all the students to do that, for all the students to do all that, and show the pictures off, and read the summary for all their partners in front of the class, or even if the teacher chose specific students to do it, let's just say little Susie, little Johnny, and Dave, those three only, and they showed off their picture of a cheetah, a polar bear, and a frog. That, and then they read the summary. I can see that taking the rest of the 5 minutes. That's 30 minutes gone. And you have just barely made it. And then at the end, let's see. At the end, all it's showing is certain things that are related, etc., etc. But that has taken 30 minutes. That's it. That has taken 30 minutes, and that is if you make the butterflies beforehand. Theoretically. My timing may be off, but 30 minutes is a short period of time. And to translate everything, and for all the students to draw their pictures, and to show off their pictures to their friends, and to write a summary, and to discuss the summary with everyone, and to do the project and all that. If they made the butterflies, then they would go over in time, unless you were to pause and wait and say, okay, next lesson, we will discuss more about camouflage. But that can cut off from your next lesson plan, which, from what I can tell, is a 30-minute period that you have. So, to make it more inclusive, you could do a little bit more prep beforehand. There's that. Okay. That was basically all about time. That aspect behind, well, which way would be better behind? Anyway, that aspect behind this was all about time, the time restrictions that we had, which isn't bad, but it still cut very close. It still cut very, very close, which is not necessarily good, because you need time for the students to understand your lesson. You need your students to have time to think through it and go, okay, that was actually really cool. That way they can understand it, that way they can remember it, that way they can go back on the test or the quiz or whatever else you want them to do and go, I remember this because that was a fun lesson. Moving forward. Next is going to be about the materials and reading through each section individually. Objectives and outcomes, already sort of went out over that. Materials needed, the 10 6 by 8 inch approximately sheets of red, the blue and the orange construction paper, and then 5 large sheets of red. All these can be switched out with specific things. I see an issue with any students that are colorblind, but in the end, it's not the end of the world, to be honest. Not meaning that bad to them, but possibly an alternate lesson plan for students with special needs. Procedure opening to lesson. Let each student choose, blah, blah, blah. Again, time constraints. Possibly would be better to do all of the butterfly makings beforehand. Possibly not, it really depends. They are not to draw on the butterflies or fold them. They should stay flat with no markings. In order to make them camouflage, I agree that they should stay flat and no markings. However, in order to get more engaged with the students, should you actually go the route that they are to cut out and make their own butterflies, then it would probably make more sense for them to mark and fold and do what they will with the butterflies, simply because the students would be more accepting, more, oh, this is cool, I get to doodle, I get to make my own butterfly. That may be more accepted with girls over boys, or you don't never know, maybe some of the boys will be cool with it, but if you go the route that they make their own butterflies, in order to make it stay camouflage, I agree, no markings, stay flat. But to get the students' attention, I think they should draw a little bit. Possibly afterwards, after the lesson is over, let them keep their butterflies and draw on them a little bit. Possibly not, I don't know. Body of lesson. Guided practice. The teacher will line up 4 large sheets of red construction paper, or enough to cover a desk of 2. A desk or 2. Call students up a few at a time to bring their butterflies and spread them out on the colored construction paper. Another way to make it go faster would be for the teacher to gather up all of them and spread them out evenly, because you know that there will be students who will clutter them all close together, and other students who will make them go all the way over there, or all the way over there, or all the way close up, or all the way back, and just make it completely random. There will be students who clump them all up, and others who will spread them all out. You, as the teacher, can spread them out evenly and hide, for example, a red one over there with a blue and an orange one, or hide the red one over there in the corner where the students can't see it very well. Make it all messed up where it's random but also evenly spread out, if that makes sense. Call us to a few students up at a time. But okay, all the students' butterflies should be spread out evenly on the paper. Now ask the students to raise their hand if they made red butterflies. Count the students and multiply by 4. Okay, that's understandable. Unless you've previously made it, in which case you know how many butterflies there are already if you made the butterflies yourself. So it really depends on how you do it. Have students line up and tell them that they will be predators. I agree with this. I agree with this to a degree. I agree with it to a degree because I'm trying to think of how to explain it. Because by having them line up and be predators, they do have access. You can't do all of it for them, and you can't make all of it. Okay, boom, 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 boom. Okay, let's keep going. Bye. This part of it was perfect for them because it allows them to go up and do the project. But if you do the butterflies and all that beforehand, this keeps them in the project and actually lets them learn. So this part, the lining up and be predators, is good. The issue would be special needs students having issues. For example, if you have a student who requires a wheelchair or a walker to get around, they would end up moving a lot more slowly than most of your other students would. This gives them the issue in that taking up more time, but at the same time, they get to, I'm not sure how to explain it. In the end, it was basically just take up more time. Or if you have an autistic student who understands the assignment to a degree, but at the same time doesn't understand the instructions, they could possibly stand there and look a little bit more instead of just keep walking and grab as they go. And they can be like, oh, there's a red one, I like red, I like the color red, and they'll grab a red one. I used to work with my mother in the Joy Ministry at our local church when I lived back in Florida. And the Joy Ministry, if you're not familiar with what that is basically it's babysitting isn't the right term, but taking care of the special needs children of the members of our church. While they're in church and while they're doing stuff, me, my mother, and a few other volunteers would help them, would basically take care of them while their parents are gone. This ranged from 5 to 25 years of age students. Anyway, and I know several of them would pause and look at the table and go, red one, because they love the color red. Over all the other colors, they must have a red one. And they would intentionally stop and pick up a red one and then keep going. Or they would grab multiple. If they didn't like the color, then they'd grab multiple different ones at once. Not because they were intentionally trying to break the rules or be rule breakers, but simply because they didn't understand the assignment or they just really liked the butterflies. So that may cause an issue there. A possible way to get around this would be to have a slightly altered lesson plan specifically for the special needs students who you would see and know would have that issue. I'm not sure exactly what that lesson plan would entail, but it would be an altered lesson plan. Have students repeat this step multiple times, only take one butterfly at a time. Again, what I just said. Monitor students to make sure they're choosing quickly and not searching for their own or friends' butterflies. You would need, if you decide not to change the lesson plan for the special needs students, then you'd have to have someone walking with them at the time of them going up, grabbing, and moving on. Otherwise, they will stop. They will search for their favorite color, and they will grab that favorite color, or they will grab multiple at once. It's unfortunately inevitable. When you see that one of the colors of butterflies has gone extinct, for example the blue, stop the line and have students go back to their seats. Count the remaining butterflies. You should have 0 butterflies from one group, possibly blue. Maybe you will have less than 10 of the other group, maybe orange, and you will have nearly all the butterflies from the red group, as the red butterflies were harder to spot on the red instruction paper. Find a student who is, all that is basically pretty good. I understand that, that's good. That really doesn't need much changing to a degree. It really doesn't need that much changing in it. Find a student that has all blue butterflies, ask them why they hunted only blue butterflies. This is good because it gets them into the discussion. Possibly, I already discussed the translation, so that really doesn't need much going over. Lead a discussion as to why the blue group went extinct before the other group. That's pretty good. Ask them what advantage the red group of butterflies had over the other colors they blended in with the environment. Write camouflage on the board. I would also have the assistant who's translating write camouflage in Spanish or whatever other language you were translating to on the board as well. That way, students who do not understand English or are having issue with English would be able to read that and understand it and understand what it means. Lead a discussion about the benefits of camouflage and ask students what animals they know that can camouflage. This is good. This really doesn't need much to change about it, to be honest, because this would allow students from other cultures to be able to go and talk about animals that they're used to. For example, what if you have a student from Brazil and they're talking about tree frogs and stuff like that? Or you have a student who lived in India and they talk about some animals and stuff there that use camouflage and stuff like that. This would bring in new discussion and allow a lot of other students to be able to get cross-culture experience to a degree. It would allow some students to be like, oh, that's cool, that's amazing, that's awesome, that's cool. Here's some animals from our culture that do the same thing, but in a slightly different way. Oh, cool, you have tree frogs that hide in the leaves that are brightly colored in order to ward off danger, but they're patterned to be camouflaged. That's cool. Here, I have a snake from my culture which does similar stuff. Oh, I have a spider that instead of camouflaging, burrows underground and hides there. Stuff like that. It would allow them all to do different things and allow them all to discuss their own cultures and allow them to discuss their own animals from their own cultures. And this would be so important, especially at this age range, because it would allow them to look at each other and go, wow, that's cool. Moving on. Show a video or book. I think the video would be, I think I already went over this. The video would be more in depth, the video would be cooler, the video would be more interesting, simply because it is a video. You as a teacher could go over the video beforehand and possibly put it into bullet points, possibly make it towards a little bit more, interesting for the students, possibly make it a PowerPoint type thing, but at the same time, the video, while it would take some time out of your day, out of the 30 minutes you have allotted, I think it's probably the best option as it would be the most interesting. The book, I think, would bore them. Independent practice. If materials are available, allow students to research an animal that use camouflage as defense. This would be good if you have computers and stuff there. It would take a bit out of your day. It would take a bit of time out of your thing, and it would, I think, put you over your 30-minute limit. However, I think a better idea may be to have some animals available that you've already researched and possibly assign certain students certain animals, maybe make it a group project to make it more inclusive. For example, if you have, let's just say 30 students in your classroom, and there could be 6 groups of 5. One group of 5 goes over a polar bear, and you can have a little note sheet that says, okay, polar bear, it lives in the Arctic, its fur is white, it does this, it eats this. Why? Explain, basically. Second group can go over penguins and why are they black and white if they live in an all-white environment? Why do they this? Why do they that? Third group can go over frog. The next can go over wolves. The next can go over horses, etc. Just random animals that use camouflage. And I know now that I just said horse, that doesn't really use camouflage, but the point stands. The point stands. This would allow the group of 5 to get to know each other, and if you do it in a way that their friends would be separated, so that way they can get to know more students, this would allow your classroom to be more organized, a little bit. Organized isn't the right word, but a bit more unified, I guess. It would allow your students to be friends with one another, to understand one another, and if you use different types of different words aren't working. But if you were to use, for example, one group of 5 has a student who is a Mexican student, one who is an Indian student, one who's an American student, and just mix them up so that way they're able to go in and say, okay, that's awesome, that's cool, but here is my culture, here's my take on it, here's my different way of thinking that can make this project that much cooler, that much better. Then they can each draw their own polar bears and show them all off at once. That way it doesn't have to be one single student going, oh, here's my polar bear. It could be the group of 5 going, here's our polar bears. And it gets them all up there at once, and they're a team. They're a group. They're unified. This would allow them to be more together. This would allow them to be more inclusive. Tell the students to draw an animal, blah, blah, blah. Have the student write a summary. This is where it would be different. Possibly have them assign a single student to act as the writer, and they can all input stuff. For an example, polar bear. Let's see, where is it? Okay, so it won't show me. I thought there was an option. I thought there was something that would... Oh, here it is. For example, the snowy owl, as put here. The snowy owl is cool for many reasons. It lives in the snow and is white. It is white color. Its white color helps the snowy owl hide from its predators and stay camouflaged. As you can see, the snowy owl is the master of disguise. So this would allow the students to all input a little bit, just a little bit in there. And you can have one of the students step up and read the summary. And with this larger, and with the groups of 6, with the groups of 5, it could be, hey, here are our snowy owls. Here's the summary. This is so cool. Here is our polar bear. Here's our summary. This is so cool. And it would cut down on time, so you don't have to choose, okay, Johnny, Susie, Sammy, Billy, and Julie. Y'all come up here and y'all each read your own. Okay, frogs, cats, dogs, lizards, polar bear. I don't know. But it would allow more of the students to feel involved and included in the assignment versus those select few. With those select few, it's just, okay, whatever, if that makes sense. Okay, finally, assessment and evaluation. Students will write a summary and draw a picture about, okay, modification and differences. If a teacher should notice that some students need extra attention, she can conduct small group instruction. Students can ask teacher questions in order to help clear up the misconceptions. Like I just went over about the group study, if one of the students is special need, it would allow the special needs student to be more included in the project. For example, it would allow them to draw their own animal. It would allow them to be able to help them. They may not be able to do quite as much as the other students, but they would still be able to help, which is very, very important. And then it goes over related lesson plans. I think that is it at the moment. That's all I can think of for any any modifications to this lesson plan. Again, my name is Austin Hughes. I am a student at Lone Star College for Professor Fei Lee in Education 2301, I think. I'm pretty sure that's the right number. Special education. And that was my assignment. Thank you.